Yeah, it's easily 5 years old. Thank you. Yeah, around the new movie, yeah. I completed, you know, the same policies. That's hard to do. Gratification. I can talk to you about that a long time ago. I could it's 5 years. Well, that's well, they need this like so they're so I'm sure about that. Wait for that. Right, it's safer. And they're still, which is
Okay, what are those questions? Would you do me a favor? Do you have all of those to, there's Kathy, and to her in the class. Okay, thanks for your patience, everybody. Technical difficulties here. Really appreciate all of you coming out tonight. I know it's a Friday evening. It was due to scheduling that we weren't able to make it on another weeknight. So appreciate your willingness to work with us. A couple of housekeeping things in order. The restrooms are right here if anybody needs it. You see there's some water and some cookies over here if you guys get a little hungry or thirsty. I think some of you guys saw the handouts that are there about a fact sheet from the city and then a fact handout on the city's process. If you guys can get a chance to grab those. Back here we have Kathy Engel and Amrit Sandhu. Amrit, you want to wave hello? Kathy, you want to wave hello? Okay. They'll take questions from you. If you guys think of questions throughout the evening, they have forms back there. You can go back there and fill out questions if you hadn't done so already. I want to take a moment to introduce some folks that are here with us. Over here at the CNU table, we have Dr. Alvin Chung. We have our former mayor, Elk Grove Mayor Gary Davis, and Dr. Cable, excuse me, and then Paul Wagstaff, also with CNU. And then over here on the city side, we have Darren Wilson, our Development Services Department, and Tony Oblog, who's one of our planners, and Daryl Doan, our Economic Development Director. We also have our mayor here, Mayor Steve Lees back here. And then for those of you who don't know me, my name is Darren Soon. I'm the Elk Grove City Councilman for District 1. And also I recognize Barry Broom from Greater Sacramento Economic Council is here in the audience as well. So all of you know, or why you're here. This is potentially a very if it goes through, it's potentially a very impactful project to this city and this region. There's a lot of questions and speculation online, and what we wanted to do was try to take a moment to clarify information in terms of city process, where the project is at this point in the process, and then also allow CNU, California Northstate University, an opportunity to also answer questions that I think many of you have. But we want to do this orderly and professional manner. There will be plenty of time, I promise you, there will be other opportunities and plenty of time for everyone to debate, voice any concerns or opinions or otherwise. But I'm going to ask you, tonight is not the night. Tonight, let's get the information out there, what information we have available, as accurate as we have, and then from there, we can proceed with other dialogues as the process moves on. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to the city to talk about the general process overall, and it won't be long. We're just, I told these guys no more than 15 minutes, and then we're going to hand it over to California Northstate University for them to give a presentation as well, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience to ask questions. I think we've got some, I think Laguna Forums is here, as well as Jack's Chronicles. I think they're both streaming live on Facebook. I think folks may be asking questions through there, so there'll be questions. There could be some questions coming through that media as well. What else do I want to tell you before we begin? Kathy and Amrit are going to filter the questions for appropriateness and redundancy, okay? And then they'll come up and hand them to me as we go forward. Okay. Any questions before we get started? All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Darren Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Soon. My name is Darren Wilson. I'm with the city's Development Services Department. I'm the director of that department. And to my left here, and will be at my right, is Antonio Ablog. He's my planning manager. We'll discuss the process. Our goal tonight is to discuss the process and briefly go over, and I mean briefly go over the CNU application. You'll know why I say briefly. I want to get in first of what is the Development Services Department, what do we do and what do we not do? We offer planning services, engineering services, and building services for private development applications. That's what we do. We process and analyze all those private development applications against federal, state, and city policies and standards. I'd like to use an analogy where if you're driving down a road and the policies are the street signs, the speed limits, the stop signs, the traffic lights. We're the police in that role. We're the implementers of that policy. Again, we review applications without prejudice. We remain neutral. Home Depot comes to town and I don't like Home Depot, I'm not going to review it based on and be more restrictive because I don't like Home Depot. On the contrary, if Bed Bath & Beyond, I like their pots and pans scented candles, I'm not going to lax those policies just to get them through the approval process. So we remain neutral through those application process. The other thing we do, we're not a full service city. We don't offer sewer, water, fire. Sometimes that is not common knowledge, but it is, and we route to outside agencies such as Caltrans, the county, sewer and water, SMUD, and the sewer district for project review. So they give their input, as well as internal departments within the city, police, economic development, and obviously my department, the Development Services Department. So once a project has been fully analyzed, the Development Services Department makes a recommendation to the appropriate approving authority. And then once that approval occurs, we go through engineering, through site approval, through grading, as well as building approval. Now, For instance, the hospital is under the purview of OSHPD, which is the Office of State-wide Health and Planning and Development. So any building associated with the hospital that's not the non-hospital buildings would be under the purview of that agency. The city would not be reviewing that. Let me get into a few things that we do not do. We don't pick and choose where a specific development goes. We do have a general plan designations. We do have zoning districts that kind of map out the city on where commercial corridors go, where residential goes, where industrial goes. But we're not here to say, Walmart, you're coming into town, we're going to put you, let's say, up here in this commercial one. That's not what we do. Another thing we don't do, we don't control the timing of development. Does anybody know what is familiar with the mall? That they had rights under the development agreement up to the end of last year, November 2018, when they expired, to develop, on that schedule. We had no control on whether their progress moving forward, and it turns out they didn't meet the deadlines of the development agreement, and as we speak, they're demoing the mall down there. So, another thing we don't do, we don't factor in applicants' financials or business plan in determining our recommendation to the approving authority. It's just big bad government does not get into insert itself into private enterprises, plain and simple. Briefly on the CNU application, it was submitted on December 19th, 2018, a couple months ago. At that submittal, it was deemed incomplete. We gave it back to the applicant, and right now it's in their hands, and currently we have nothing in our department to analyze. So we can go over process tonight on typical projects similar to these through the environmental process and application process, but we have nothing to talk about as far as the CNU application. At a minimum, I believe this is in the fact sheet, they'll need a district development plan, a conditional use permit, and a design review. So some of the timelines and processes that Antonio will be going over here shortly would be, you'll notice that this process is in its infancy. I mean, we're not even at a complete application yet. He'll go over that timeline with you. It's going to be a long ride, so buckle up. He'll show you where we're at in that process and how long it's, not quantify it, but show you kind of the process that has to go through to get to those approvals. And another thing he will show is there's going to be plenty of opportunity to provide public input through that process. So I do know this would be one of the largest projects we process in our department, so that just tells you the scale and the timing it's going to take. So without further ado, I'll give it to my planning manager to go over the schedule.
Thank you, Darren. As Darren mentioned, I'm Antonio Avila. I'm the planning manager for City of Elk Grove. I manage a planning team that manages projects as they go through the planning process, resulting in a public hearing for a decision on the project. Our process is fairly complex. As Darren said, that's magnified by just being one of the largest projects we've had in the city so far. What we've done for you tonight is we provided a timeline of a typical project, and though this is atypical, it still follows these same basic steps through the process. What we've tried to do is provide a simple outline of how the project flows through the process. There's two main processes that occur simultaneously once a project comes in. One is the planning project application review process. If you can't see the screen up top in the handouts we provided tonight, that's in the blue area on top of your sheet. Simultaneously with that, we are required by the state of California to go through environmental review on all projects. We call that CEQA review. People are familiar with planning projects and development. We have to go through a CEQA process for this application. And at this point, we anticipate that this project will go through a full environmental impact report, which is the highest level of environmental review for a planning project that you could go through. So I'll kind of help you understand what this timeline means and walk you through the planning process. First, I'll go through our planning review. This is planning review from the time the application is submitted until we're completed with review. Our first step, as you'll see towards the left, we did receive an application, as you heard from Darren. Our first step in that is to review it, whether the application is complete enough for us to send it out for review. And as Darren said, we've already made a determination that we don't have enough information at this time to start that real technical review. Once we do determine that it's complete enough for review, we start our review cycles. What we do with that is we get a complete package together of plans, site plans, architectural plans, project description, and drainage plans, and we send that out for review for the first time. That initial review cycle is about 30 days, and that involves multiple agencies and multiple internal departments, and we review it for code standards, building design, site design, parking, drainage, and other regulatory requirements that come from codes, plans, and policies. Alongside with review of design, since this does involve conditional use permits for their operations, we do an operational review, hours of operation, emergency routes, use of a health stop, and other operational features of a hospital. As far as our internal review team, we do have a large internal review team that will be reviewing this. Internally, engineering, public works, building, and police, they'll all be part of this review. And we do send it to external departments, as Darren said, the Community Services District, Fire, Parks, also County of Sacramento will get involved for water and sewage, and even the state with Caltrans and environmental review. And as you can see in the top of this project application review, even after that initial review period, you'll see cycles of project revision, revised plan review, another set of project revisions. It's not uncommon for a project like this, even a smaller project, to go through multiple cycles, 3 or 4 cycles of review. And what happens during those reviews is our multiple commenting agencies review the plans, make comments, and it's the applicant's responsibility to provide the appropriate design or description in response to those. Those could result in changes to architecture, changes to site plan, changes to operation, and we go through that iterative cycle of review through the whole process. And while we're doing our internal review process, what the city does for environmental reviews, we contract with a third-party consultant to do our environmental review and our environmental document. That environmental review is separate but parallel track, but they review things specific to environmental impact on the project. That environmental review will have its own sub-studies, including traffic review, noise review, biological review, and any other studies that are necessary to fully review the potential environmental impact of the project. They could be air emissions, light glare, or things of a similar nature. What happens during that environmental review, the environmental consultant will work with sub-consultants to determine if there's any impacts related to traffic or noise or any of the other areas of study for that environmental document. What will happen is, as they conclude their studies, they will have to determine if there's any impacts that are, some of them maybe not significant, that the project and project applicant will not have to address. There could be impacts that are significant, but there could be changes to the project that could be made to lessen those impacts to a level that are not deemed significant. But there also can be impacts that are considered significant and cannot be avoided, and that will be up to staff and the decision makers to review once those final documents are up for public hearing. So once the full project review up top, if you look over towards the right, there's a plan review complete, and that coincides at the bottom with the final EIR completion date. Once those are complete, the project should align as far as the project has to address both the regulatory and policy review on the planning side and the environmental review that you see in the green on the bottom. And it could be that we get comments from the planning side that are only addressed in design, but there could be also operational matters that are found in the environmental review that are addressed to that side. And these, though we've shown the graphic that there's a top half and the bottom half, these processes, they're parallel, but they're not mutually exclusive. There will be dialogue back and forth between the city team and the environmental review team as things change with the project. Those have to be reconciled within the environmental review document so that everything is thoroughly reviewed. I don't know if anybody in the audience has seen what an environmental impact report is. We do have the Dignity Health campus that was approved on Elk Grove Boulevard a few years ago. Just holding in my hand what that document looks like. There's still some volumes of outside studies that aren't included, but this is kind of a good representation of kind of what type of volume that document is. So once all that review is complete, we do make a recommendation to the hearing body. At this point, as Darren said, we don't have much to review yet. We've asked for, we do have an outline of information we need from the applicant that we are looking for them to respond to. So we are still early in the process. If we look at the timeline, on the top portion, the deemed complete, in the planning portion, we are not even there yet. And you can see the finish line way over on the right. Still a far way to go. For a project like this, as complex as it may be, even the environmental review itself can take 9 to 12 months. And outside of that process, 12 to 18 month review period would not be uncommon for a project of this scale. And as Darren said, we've tried to highlight on this fact sheet timeline. The stars indicate places where we will be soliciting information from both the public and outside agencies. We'll be putting project descriptions out, project information out for anybody to comment on, and we will be incorporating those comments that we receive into our project review. And again, this project will end up being a public hearing for the decision-making body to make a decision on staff's role in that is to make a recommendation after we've completed all of our project review and environmental review.
Thank you very much, Antonio and Darren. A lot of information. We're not trying to make you planners here or environment or CEQA experts, but I do commend you guys for the graphic that highlights a very complex and long process. We will take questions later about that if you have questions about the process, so don't worry there, because I know that was a lot of information. Before I move on, I want to do a couple more things that I forgot. First of all, I saw Councilmember Stephanie Wynn walked in. Thank you for being here. And I want to thank Evan Kananaga, SASF, and Daniel, who has waved. Appreciate you guys making this facility and this equipment available to us this evening. Thank you very much. Okay. Alvin, or Gary, you want to go? Okay. Gary Davis.
Good evening. It's nice to see many of you again. It's been a while. Thanks for coming out. It's Friday night. We understand that there's a lot of other places you could be Friday night. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are having date night here tonight? A couple of you? All right. How many of you wish you were on date night tonight? Look, you're here. This room is full. It's a Friday night. It obviously speaks to the importance of this project, this community, and the dialogue that we need to have around it. Thank you to Councilman Sulin for taking the time to put this together, for hosting us, to the city for being here, also on Friday night outside of normal work hours. Thank you. As was mentioned, I've worn a lot of hats. I'm your former mayor, served you for 10 years. In addition, though, My wife and I have lived in a lot of places in Elk Grove. We're now in our 4th Elk Grove home, but we live in Stone Lake. This is probably our final resting place in Stone Lake as we prepare for our kids to go off to college, and we've sort of downsized and made a very conscious choice to move into the Stone Lake community. And also, I'm really proud of being a former business owner. Riscate Coffee used to be Grace Coffee, which is a company that my wife and I started. So I understand the impacts of being a business owner in the shopping centers in this part of town. So I just want to put that on the table. We are here to start a dialogue. We're grateful to be able to do that. Last piece. And I was brought on board by California Northstate University as a community relations consultant, really starting in January. So, like many of you, I saw the announcement of the hospital, started to watch the dialogue that was happening online, and reached out to President Chung. We had worked together previously. I was part of the team. It's a very big team, but part of the team that brought California Northstate University to Elk Grove in the first place to fill in the old AAA building when it went vacant. And so I've always been grateful for the investment that they've made in that part of the community. So when I reached out in January, he asked if I would come on board and help with community outreach and relations. So we're here to do a brief presentation on the project. We're here to listen to, we're here to answer questions that we can answer tonight. And I've also got a stack of business cards, and we're available to meet with anybody that would like to, or do presentations at community groups that are interested. I know we have a presentation. Because this is a relatively small screen in comparison to this big room, I'm going to read this a little bit more than I normally would, so I want to make sure everybody can see the content, but there's only 7 slides. We're going to go through this fairly quickly and just hopefully get to question and answer. And hopefully we'll have our slides here. No, it's not up. You hit the... So I guess the real question is, where are we going for dinner afterwards?
There you go, Gary.
Okay, California Northstate University, their mission here at the bottom is very simple but very powerful, and that's to advance the art and science of healthcare. Go to the next slide. So I want to just talk a little bit about timeline here. First is going to 2014. This is when CNU opened its campus in Elk Grove. They opened with a doctorate of pharmacy program, and then pretty quickly had been down, we're working down the path of getting a medical school accredited, which happened a year later in 2015. In 2017, they purchased land. They purchased the shopping center, right? The shopping center that is the land adjacent to the CNU campus. December 2018 is when I think we all sort of started this dialogue and heard about the hospital. So there was a press conference announcing the teaching hospital project. And then there's some, and I think another very important date, because this is coming up very quickly. 2019 in May, the first medical students will be graduating, which I think is pretty exciting. Then there's 2 dates on there that are estimates, and I think we want to put them out there for the sake of starting this dialogue. 2020, assuming the timelines that were discussed earlier work, and there's project approval. 2020, the hospital construction will begin, and it's going to take about 2 years. So if the project is approved in 2020, there's an anticipated completion date of 2022. So want to just put that a little bit in perspective to recognize that we're really, as far as considering the hospital project, we're very early on in the process. There's a long way to go in this discussion. I know you've heard that before, but it's true. And I would say, that press conference was an effort to let the entire community know that this project is out there, and we're looking forward to having a dialogue with you around it. So the hospital complex project itself has 3 phases. And again, I'm going to read these to you because I know these are smaller letters here. Phase 1, a 250-bed teaching hospital, level 2 trauma center. These are the plans. Right? Level 2 trauma center, below level and surface parking. And that's phase 1, a possible addition of another 150 beds to the hospital. But I guess that would not be phase 1, that would be down the road. Phase 2 of the project, I think it's important because what you're seeing in the news is a picture of the entire project. When you back it up into phases, you'll see that there's 3. So the first is just the hospital. Second phase is outpatient clinic, medical offices, and then building 2 parking structures, 2 parking garages. The third phase would be going back to the medical school, doing an expansion of the medical school building, and building dormitories for the college students. So those are the 3 phases that are being proposed and what they include at a high level. So, teaching hospital, I'm going to give you a high level. Dr. Chung is here. He's the expert for sure, and he'll be able to answer questions around it. But, right, goals of a teaching hospital are to train future generations of physicians while also delivering state-of-the-art healthcare. There's a severe shortage of physicians, medical doctors in the state, in the country, and California Northstate has realized that and has made a conscious decision to start their medical program so they can begin to train more doctors. By having a teaching hospital, they can encourage these graduates that go through the program to live here. So live here, work in the community, you're getting your medical doctorate degree, and you also have an opportunity to work right there where you're learning. Third point here speaks to their medical philosophy, which I'll allow them to expand on, but really a team and collaborative approach to optimize patient care and outcomes. That is how they approach their teaching, their training is very team-oriented. Next slide. The CNU College of Medicine itself has attracted some excellent talent. If you look at their faculty, if you look at their students, it's a highly competitive program already, and they're just in the first class, but they have a 2% acceptance rate, so certainly speaks to that demand we talked about for trying to identify opportunities for people to become doctors. Their acceptance rate is 2%. And this last bullet point I think is really important because it speaks to the quality of what it is that's happening over at Cal North State University. They are already, the first class really, already in the top 25 universities in the country on their medical school student medical licensing exam with a 99% passage rate. I mean, that's higher than the other teaching medical universities in this region. It's higher than the state average, higher than the national average. They're in the top 25 in the country. And I just encourage you to let that sink in. Because it really is about, we know that this is a big proposal. We know that there's a lot for us to talk about, but this is also a university that's committed to excellence. And so far, they're on the right track. Dr. Chung will introduce himself later when he has the opportunity, but there's a quote here that sort of, I think, speaks to his philosophy. I believe in meeting the needs of the community, performing our civic duty, and serving humanity. A little bit of his biographical background. He's the CEO and founding CEO of California Northstate University, but he also worked 30 years for Kaiser Permanente. He oversaw pharmacy operations at 9 hospitals and 45 clinics, and taught pharmacology for 27 years at American River College. So Dr. Chung is local and esteemed in his profession. Those are our slides. build. At this point, I think we're just looking forward to the questions that come. We'll answer. But like I said, this is the start of a long discussion. We are excited to have it, looking forward to having it here. And again, just want to reiterate, anybody that is interested in follow-up conversations from this point forward as well, we are available to meet with.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So before we go to the question, I wanted Barry Broom, who I introduced earlier, made a trip down here. He is the CEO of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And if you haven't heard, I just want to fill you in terms of the Sacramento region, the cities and counties in the Sacramento region. Understand that we do jobs not just for our respective jurisdictions. A rising tide raises all ships. And so to that end, the Greater Sacramento Economic Council is put together, and Barry, I'll let you speak to a little bit when it was, but and it's assembled with a lot of the mayors in the region. Oh, thank you. And so they have an economic strategy for the OR region. Barry made it down here. I want to give him a few minutes to speak. He had to fill out a card to speak, but didn't realize the format that we were doing here tonight. So I just want to give him a few minutes before he has to leave. Barry, thanks for coming tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me, and it's great to be in Elk Grove. So our organization has 19 communities and 40 CEOs. Your mayor and Dr. Chung serve on the board. And our job is to kind of design an economy that allows us to get out of our dependency on housing and government. Those of you who've been here know in 2008, our community was severely hurt by the housing crisis. Almost 33 to 40% of our economy is tied to government. If you follow that, there's challenging things like pensions coming online with our government. So it's really important for us to start to build an economy independent of the government. Our largest and most successful ability to do that is the healthcare economy. We're one of the top 10 markets in the United States in healthcare, but not just in the way of teaching hospitals and healthcare assets, but we have to do a better job at attracting biotech, pharmaceutical, medical device companies. These are the kind of companies that are going to pay the kind of wages that allow us to keep your kids in our community, allow us to meet our tax obligations to our schools. And this healthcare system, and the uniqueness of this is both a medical school, a teaching hospital, but also a pharmaceutical capabilities. So we have a couple of dozen Bay Area pharmaceutical and biotech companies that are interested in coming to our community. Over time, it could be thousands of jobs, but it's a very expensive and unique type of infrastructure that these companies need. So the kind of thing that you see a developer do, in a nice development like this, you're not going to see them do this with pharmaceutical companies because a lab can be as much as $2,000 a square foot. So having this development come online with a teaching hospital, medical, pharmaceutical capability is going to give us the infrastructure to attract these industries and produce products and services that are important to healthcare. We all remember what happened the last couple of weeks in Amazon in New York where people didn't take the time to learn from each other. So I will come back and spend time again with Daryl Doan and anyone in this community to hear concerns so that I can be helpful and supportive. As you know, it's a long-term process, so this isn't something that's being rushed through. But it's important also to remember in 2018, over 1,800 companies left California. We've lost almost 10% of our Fortune 500 companies just in the 4 years that I've been in this job. And we have to start to pay attention to investment in jobs, how we're going to build a future. So my hope is, we're going to find the balance between the concerns of the community, whether it's sustainability issues. Obviously, we want to work with and support any small businesses that might be impacted by this unfavorably. But if you own a small business in Elk Grove, can you imagine what happens when thousands of high-paying jobs generate income? How many more people with restaurants and insurance businesses and things like that will benefit from it? So it's my hope and optimism that we're going to do a good job of hearing you out, making sure we do planning the right way, making sure your community stays beautiful. But as we know, Elk Grove has worked a couple of decades to be more than a bedroom community. And this is our real opportunity to move from that bedroom community to something more dynamic and independent. We just want to be smart and careful about it, hear everybody out. But we also want to remember that, this is a lot of capital. At the end of the day, it'll be several $100 million. We don't want to scare off the capital investors that as a community, we don't want to embrace good paying jobs. So how do we find the balance between making sure neighborhoods are respected, small businesses are respected, but we capture these good paying jobs for our future? Get this tax income so you have more police and fire. Get the tax income to your schools. Stabilize our community and do a better job. So you'll hear from me again. This is a long process, but I wanted to stop by and say hello tonight. I've been working closely with Daryl Doan on this, your mayor, Dr. Chung, and I think this is a really exciting moment for Elk Grove. So if we can communicate, stay on each other's side, I think we can do something special for the community and make sure everybody's concerns are accommodated. So, Councilman, thank you for allowing me to say a few words tonight. I'm excited about this. I think this is good news for us as a community. We just got to make sure we're listening to each other and being respectful, and I know the city government's going to make sure that happens. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Barry. Appreciate you being here. We're gonna go to questions. We're gonna go to questions.
Point of order.
Point of order?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You said we were here to learn stuff.
Yeah.
That was just a pitch. Right. It's not a pitch. I just don't want it to we're slow. Period.
Okay.
All due respect, I think I'm ready to pitch.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anybody else here, and you basically set the rules.
I'm-
You're going to educate.
And point, counterpoint, so we're even, so let's just move on to questions, okay? I know Kathy and Amrit have some questions for me, so we're gonna move right into that.
Do they want to send you?
No, Barry, yeah, can you give me? No, these folks are residents, I believe, of this one.
Hi, my name is Amrit Zandu. This is Kathy Engel. And earlier today on Next Door, the question was, who is Nest? Raise your hands. We're citizens. We live in Stone Lake. We live in Lakeside. We live in Westlake. We live here. We work here. I am a healthcare provider. I've said that many times. I do work in the healthcare industry for the last 15 years. I worked in Elk Grove since 2002. I'm kind of like homegrown. I managed your Taco Bell on Elk Grove Boulevard for Bob Whitelock. I've been here for a while. I've invested in the city. So no, I do not work for CNU. So, does that help?
Okay.
All right.
No questions. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Amrit. Okay, first question. Does Elk Grove's current general plan envision this type of medical development in that location? And would current zoning have to be amended to allow the project? Actually, I think.
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, we're still in the beginning of the review process. Right now, they're requesting design entitlements, project review that would include district design development review plan, conditional use permit, and for the hospital and the helistop. The current general plan and zoning allow for these types of developments with a conditional use permit and with design review. They still have to go through the discretionary process for that, though. They're not allowed by right.
Okay, there's a lot of questions here, so I'm gonna keep moving. What is the actual number of votes, no's, will it take for this not to happen, and will petitions be circulated? So we have a 5-member planning commission, and if it goes to council, a 5-member council, so that's 3 of each. And then will petitions be circulated? It's the democratic process, that's up to all of you. This question is, who is the consultant that will present the EIR? I'm sorry, let me just do this. If not selected yet, what is the selection process? And will the voters have an opportunity to participate in that process, if only through public input?
No, as far as our city process, we do have 5 on-call consultants. The project information is distributed to those consultants, as far as the process goes, the applicant may choose one of those consultants, but they are all 5 vetted through our city process as far as environmental consultants that we feel provide quality documents and documents that the city can stand by. But they are right. We already have 5 on board. It has to be one of those 5.
Okay. Next question. Seeing that could you please let us know if your hospital intends to contract with major health insurance companies that serve the majority of our residents, or will it serve wealthy cash-paying customers?
Excuse me, that was my question. You didn't read the full question.
That wasn't appropriate.
What I'd like to answer is that we are a hospital, and then definitely we like to serve members of the community based on the insurance benefit coverage. Let's say that you were to choose an insurance carrier and health plan that included our hospital as part of the benefits, and then you will have access to the hospital services. We do not select members of the community to serve based on their economic status. We serve everybody who needs help.
Hey, Darren, there were 3 pieces to that question you read over there, and you only answered one of them. The third question is applicable.
Okay, we'll go back to that. Will the voters have an opportunity to participate in that process, if only through public input? He did. He said we have 5 consultants on staff that the city will choose. No. The normal process is the city selects, has gone through the process, they have 5 consultants they keep on, to select from. And that's for all applications, and it's not just this one. Next question is, was the intersection of West Tarrant and Elk Grove Boulevard designed to handle the increase in traffic? Will we be trapped in Stone Lake and can't get out?
As Antonio mentioned in that process, that'll be analyzed as a technical study under the EIR under traffic.
Okay. This question is for Dr. Chung. Does CNU have a residency program in place? You stated that this is a hospital to train future physicians. Who are the students you are training? When will the residency program be in place?
Okay, the residency program will be the integral part of the hospital, and that means that the inception of the residency program will be around the same time when the hospital construction is complete, and then when we have the patient care services initiated. I just want to remind everybody that the residency program application process is quite lengthy as well, so that there will be some kind of overlap between that as well as the construction phase of the hospital. Our hope is that the residency program will be ready as soon as the hospital begins to serve the community.
That's good. I think that one's working all right. So this one is also for CNU. How would my medical care be affected by the need to meet fiscal goals to satisfy investors of a for-profit hospital?
Every hospital is have to operate up to the standard prescribed by the many different organizations, including the Department of Health. So as you can see earlier, how we uphold quality as our highest priority. I always believe that when there is quality, everything else, will be here. So our first and foremost objective of the hospital is to provide excellent medical care to members of the community, and then everything else is secondary. I think that both quality as well as our mission speak very loud and clear. That is our priority. And then if we have some residue, at the end of the operation, or more, to that, but that is not our main focus.
Another one for you. Are the construction contractors going to be required to pay prevailing wages? That is, required to use union labor and craftspersons?
We are in the process of working with the many different trades, from mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and all phases of the constructions. We are very much in support of prevailing wages, and then we are very pleased that that is our objective, to retain and hire high quality construction staff to complete a wonderful hospital in this region.
Okay. Dr. Chung, there's another question for you. You were recently asked by the Sacramento Business Journal about your plans for financing this project, and you said, quote, "We are looking at consultation of a few financial experts and lending institutions." What does that mean?
Well, it means that the financing process and strategies for the construction of this hospital, and then we are no different than other major organizations that we need to finance for a project as big as this. $750 million. It's not a small construction cost. So most institutions, they will go through the route of financing the construction of the project. And so that is what we're doing, just like all the other major institutions.
Okay. That's what I think is for me. Who's paying for tonight's meeting? Nobody. Which, you're making Evan even more upset. Thank you, Evan, again, for donating this facility to us. Appreciate it. Okay, back to CNU. How does a for-profit hospital work? Most residents of Elk Grove are members of larger healthcare organizations. If we need care, our insurance will repatriate us to the appropriate hospitals. How then would CNU retain patients?
Well, I think that let's not, confuse ourselves with the label, whether it's for-profit or non-profit, because we share the same amount of, the same level of scrutiny in terms of quality of care, the accreditation of the hospital, the licensing of the hospital, and the only difference is that the initial sources of the fund, and that is an IRS, label, not necessarily a definition we describe how we operate. As I mentioned earlier, quality of care is always, in our highest priority. As far as the other part of the question, you have seen that since we moved into this region, we will continue to invest, the residue of our operation into continue to enhance and then the expansion of our education mission. And then kind of give you an idea in comparison. Our tuition is actually lower than University of Southern California. And you all know that University of Southern California is a non-profit institution, and yet we charge less than USC. And then a few other schools, as well as we can see. I don't want to name too many institutions. I think one is enough.
Okay. Okay. Okay, they weren't satisfied with that answer. Is there more explanation you can provide?
Let me just add to that. The example I just mentioned to you was several-fold. First one is that we have done a very good job in terms of fulfilling our education mission, and yet we charge less tuition than other non-profit university. So what I'm trying to tell you right now is that the same level of philosophy, the same level of attention to doing a good job, providing care, and then make care affordable. And that is our job.
That was my question. I'm a Kaiser member, okay? If I have a heart attack, go to your hospital, get stabilized. As soon as I'm stable, Kaiser is going to take me. So how are you going to retain patients in your hospital beyond the acute stages?
Great question.
Well, I'm not here to answer. Even though I work at Kaiser for many years, I cannot answer the question, what the Kaiser policy is. What I can say is that we are offered by other insurance carriers. Okay? So let's not just focus on one particular scenario to draw a big conclusion. Okay?
Okay, maybe I could just add, because I do know that, there's a lot in process, there's a lot that's being negotiated still, but their objective is to be able to work with every major health insurance carrier. That's the goal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, why is the city hosting this information session and not CNU? They're not. I am hosting it, the council member. I've asked the city to be here, they're supporting me, and I've asked CNU to be here as well, so that all of you and anyone watching who has questions about this project, this process, can get clarification. And I'll go farther to say this is why Amrit and Kathy are helping me here tonight. We're trying to make this a transparent process, let folks to ask their questions and get things answered to the best of folks' availabilities. I've also very intentionally asked the CNU sit on this side and the city sit on this side, because there is a separation between the two. I know it doesn't feel that way, but any applicant needs to go through the city. That's how it works, right? So there needs to be, they have to work with them professionally. But as was stated earlier, staff's job is to evaluate all applications, and then it's up to decision bodies at that point to finally.
And this is the pro side. In
In a nutshell.
a nutshell.
In a
This
nutshell.
is the pro. These are the people who say they are neutral.
This is the applicants. These are the folks that process the application. Okay. Okay. This one's for me too. So, according to the SACB article in 12/20/2018, Darren was quoted as saying the announcement of the new hospital fits neatly into the city's ongoing efforts to build out a, quote, biotech district that would build off of existing pharmacy and medical schools in the area to fuel job growth and attract medical research incubators and startups. Why has no one heard about this biotech district? So, you heard earlier talking about, I think it might have been Barry that mentioned the healthcare industry being a huge industry growing in this area. I think earlier they talked about the EIR for Dignity Healthcare. There's no secret that our growing population here and healthcare in general is on the upswing. It's a desirable industry. We didn't specifically, in the press conference, we talked about a biotech district, but as more of an aspirational thing. In general, we just said we want biotech jobs. We want the medical industry here. I would say that about technology industry as well. So it was for, this is for the press release, and so this fits in line with what the city's trying to do to attract jobs here, period. Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
the actual question was, why didn't anybody else learn about this until now with the general plan?
I don't know why people haven't heard about things. I mean, I'll bet people haven't heard about this meeting tonight either.
Yes, they did.
Well, I know.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's some people too. Yeah. No, yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Dr. Chung, you state that at the city council meeting on January 9th, that a community information meeting was being planned for January 15th. Only a few members of the community were invited. Do you feel that this is an inclusive and appropriate way to get feedback from the community of 1,400 homes?
I mean, I think what was announced that night was that there was going to be community outreach that was started, right? I think that meeting was focused on community leaders that had expressed interest in the project at that point. They were invited. Even up to there were some folks that earlier in the day said, hey, I heard about this meeting, we want to come, and we said come. So, and I think we need to, and also say, this is a meeting tonight we've been hoping for and asking for quite a while. We're glad that it's happening tonight. There are going to be more. I think I said it earlier a couple of times, say it again, but we're available to meet with each and every group of residents that wants to sit down and have a discussion. So that's the best way I can answer that question.
Okay. How does the public find readily available information regarding community meetings that you will host? There's no mention of the hospital on the school's website. I'm assuming this is for CMU. So.
Well, I think there's a website that's dedicated to the hospital that's being prepared, that's soon to launch. There'll be information there. For people that are here tonight, a stack of business cards. But I will say, look, Cal Northstate University has the ability to broadcast events. They will. I know that there are others. I think there's probably at least one other city meeting that will be happening in the future too. And the city has been getting the word out. So I think watch for the website. When that comes out, there'll be an announcement.
Okay. Where has this first class of medical students received their field training?
The clerkship has initiated 2020, 17, 18, and then a good portion of the 19 prior to graduation. As far as location is concerned, we have affiliation with many different hospitals in this region, as well as outside of this region. For example, all the hospitals that you encounter in this region, they're all affiliated with the medical school. And then as far north as in Yuba City, and then as south as Southern California. So we are reaching out to many different hospital system and healthcare system as part of our overall infrastructure for training the medical students.
Okay. Alvin, who is the developer of this project?
The general contractor, we have initially interviewed 8 of them, and then after successions of selection, we're now down to 4. And then probably in another month or so, we will be able to reach maybe down to a short list, and then in the appropriate time, we will announce it as well too.
Okay. Can you please provide us with a timeline of each of the proposed phases? I'm assuming it's the 3 phases that were. Okay.
Yeah, I think the only timeline that we can provide at this point is phase 1. Phase 2, so in the interest of sharing and being transparent about plans, there are phases 2 and phases 3 planned. Much like we look at Sutter Hospital, over off of Bighorn, Sutter has an approved hospital. Well, they built a medical office building there over 25 years ago. They'll build the surgical outpatient center next, but they had plans to expand for a while, right? But this is the medical industry. Things do change. Dignity Health had their hospital approved. They built a medical office building. I think a lot of us thought they built a hospital a long time ago. They haven't. So I guess my point is, to answer your question directly, phase 1 has a very definite timeline that we're aiming for. Phase 2 and 3 really depends on a lot of factors, and so they're not a place to be able to, I don't think we know what those are at this point. Phase 1 is the hospital, and the plan would be that it would be open 2 years after approval.
And beginning construction when?
If approved, 2020 is when.
No month?
Well, they won't know because they can't predict when neutral party over here approves this or doesn't approve it. So, but this one's questions for the city. Is there a project with Nivagen Pharmaceuticals in the works? You guys heard of that? Not that you're aware of? Okay. No. Okay. There's 3 no's, okay. Okay, next question. Why is Stone Lake Landing being rezoned? And the second question to that is the developer allowed to demolish Stone Lake Landing even if the hospital does not go forward? So I'm gonna go out on a limb on this one. So the Stone Lake Landing is being asked to be rezoned because of the hospital project. Will the developer be allowed to demolish Stone Lake Landing if the hospital does not allow it to go forward? It's their land. So, do you own the land?
Yeah, California Northstate University owns the land, right? And property rights come like with that. If you want to demolish your home, you could. I would ask why, right? I don't, if a hospital is not approved, I don't know why they would want to demolish a shopping center that's got, paying rent, tenants paying rent. So I think the legal question would be sure. I mean, you could, but there's a process.
Okay, this next question. So I'm going to read the next question, but it's going to be for Dr. Chung. But it's asking Mayor Lee and Dr. Chung, why should we trust you? How can we trust you? In the past several months, it has become apparent that you, one, hid this plan until after the election, knowing you would lose a majority of the Stone Lake Lakeside votes. Okay, there's a lot of questions here. Look, we're not here let's just ask the question. Let's answer question number 1. And so, I guess, Dr. Chung, the question is, why should we trust you? That's the question, number 1.
Well, you know what? I have devoted many years, in my career, serving the public, serving the community. I do a very good job that, I believe that every day is an honest day of work. So it is up to you whether you want to believe what I share with you, anytime in the past and in the future. And then the best way to make that determination on your own is that observe what I do for the community. And that's the best I can say. Okay? Observe what I do for the community. Okay?
Can I just, go ahead. I mean, look, when the economy was down and now the AAA call center consolidated and they walked away, I mean, Colorado State University made an investment in this part of our community, and they're now wanting to make an investment in a $750 million investment building a hospital. I think a lot of folks there probably aren't many of you that would say, I don't want a hospital, right? I think it's about location. So I guess I would just...
I'm gonna stop there. But I appreciate, look, I know there's a lot of emotion even in these questions, okay? So what we want to do, again, we want to get some answers, and we want to do it, in a professional way. So a lot of this goes on, for a lot of things, but I guess at the end of the day, the last question is from this individual is, so what do you plan to do to regain our trust? That would be,
that having dialogue with you, hearing the concerns, the point of tonight, the point of the community meeting, small community meeting we had before, the point of the one-on-ones we've been having, the point of us getting online and engaging is to hear all of the specific concerns that this community has. And we're in a listening phase and information sharing, but it's a listening phase. And so then it's taking what we've heard and attempting to work with you to adopt mitigation measures, proposals, to attempt to make it a win-win. We've got a long way to go, a lot of discussion to be had, but we certainly hope that we can earn the trust of folks that maybe don't feel like the trust level is high right now, but we know it's going to take time.
Yeah. Well, I understand, and it is Dr. Chung's prerogative if he wants to let Gary speak for him in this regard. Right.
Okay. I'm going to make it very plain and simple for you guys, okay? Very plain and simple. If we are just a regular 4-year liberal art university, and we will not find it in our thinking to try to enhance the civic amenity within the city. That the fact that we are a medical school, we look around our environment and look at our civic, obligation in terms of we are a medical school. We care about the people in the environment. We see that there is a lack of medical facility that in our analysis that makes sense. We go at great risk and then arrange the financing to build a hospital so that we all can have ready access to care in urgent situation, emergent situation, routine care, and a variety of services that will propel and increase the livability index of the city of Elk Grove. And that is a demonstration of our social accountability and being part of the greater contribution to this region. I think that is the objective, and that is fulfilling our mission. Now I know that it might, contrary to some of the micro perspective, but on a broad scale, it is a great thing that we've done to this region. So I hope that you will see this as a way for us to living up to institutional responsibility to the society, and that's the best I can tell you. Okay? And then whether we have done things exactly in order, I think I would say that looking back in time, we could manage a process better. It wasn't a perfect launch in terms of information. We thought that we have came out at the very, very beginning. As you have heard that we didn't even finish, submitted a complete application form. We want to be as early as we can and notify everybody. And then we ask your patience, we ask your understanding, we ask your cooperation, so that we can actually work together to do this hospital that the city needs. Thank you.
Dr. Mark, my question there. I'll make it really short. You asked us to look at your actions, but your actions in the last couple of months have proven otherwise than what you're saying. That's why I asked you, what will you do to gain our trust back as a community to protect the community?
Well, I think having information session like this and having open dialogue, you get to know us better, we get to know the community better. I think that's a good way to start. Fostering and nurturing the trusting relations.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. The parking structures seem to be part of phase 2. Where will your employees, patients, and students park? We have already noticed an increased amount of parking on West 10.
So I hit upon it earlier in phase 1, I'll reiterate it. So the phase 1 of the hospital proposal has embedded in it parking within the hospital itself. So underground, at level, and then if you drive out to, if you see Northstate University campus, you'll see there's a lot of parking there as well. So it's embedded in the project, plus there's a lot of unused spaces currently. Okay.
How many jobs will be lost with the destruction of Stone Lake Landing? I've heard 430 at all data, and with another 15 businesses, maybe estimated 500 to 600 total, question mark. How many will be gained from the hospital, not including temporary construction? what is the net gain in jobs? So between all data, businesses, and then what the jobs bring in from the hospital. Everybody's trying to do math this late at night. I don't know if that's. I think that's a mistake.
So, first of all, this is going to be, as we said, this is going to be done in phases. Phase 1 will impact 3 buildings. And those 3 buildings are towards the back, you know, near the freeway. All data stay. I mean, at this point, I mean, they don't have plans to leave. They signed an extension in their lease. So I will say that there has been pretty extensive outreach that has begun to business owners, and we are attempting to have conversations with all of them about what their plans are. If you look at phase 1 of the project that impacts those 3 buildings, well, future phases contemplate keeping retail in and around the center and other parts of it. So we're attempting to have conversations with the business owners now about who wants to stay, and if you want to stay, what are your needs, so that we can attempt to plan for keeping them within the center. They're going to make the ultimate decision about what they do. Yeah, I think that's the best way to answer it. And number of jobs in the hospital itself, I think it's.
What do you estimate that?
You estimated between 1,500, eventually 18, depending on the timing of the expansion. So close to 2,000 jobs.
Okay. Can you explain to us how the west side of the city is accessible to all of Elk Grove?
I certainly hear you, but my answer is sort of the same. Like, we've reached out to each of the businesses. Our goal is that all of them are retained within Elk Grove, right? But I think ultimately they're going to have to make their decisions about what they decide to do. Look, as someone that owned a business across the street, I can tell you that, and if you look, this isn't a surprise. I mean, this shopping center has been vacant. Has had high vacancy rates for a very long time. This is a tough place. It's a tough place.
Okay, let's not. I don't want to get into debate, please. I know you asked the question. I know you clarified the question, and I heard that. I know it may not be satisfactory to you right now. We got a lot of questions. We got a lot.
I heard a lot of numbers about how many jobs are going to have. The last time I heard was 1,400, including temporary construction jobs. So I would just like these numbers clarified.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. If you guys could, you know what? Daryl, will you do me a favor? Will you write that on the? So I forgot to announce this earlier. I brought these easels for like parking lot items. So we'll do that. That's something I want to ask CNU to endeavor to try to refine those numbers, or maybe better estimate, and then put them on your website. Okay. The next, Miss, I'm going to ask you to please fill out a card, because there's a ton. Oh.
It's just a statement, and it's really directed at you.
Okay.
My comment is, if you're saying that this is a forum for people to be able to ask questions, and that their questions will be addressed, even if their questions are uncomfortable, as long as it's an appropriate question, you should ask them in their entirety. You should ask all the questions and give them some.
Yes.
Or not, they may not be able to address all questions, but you should stop
Miss, what I'm trying to do, the reason why Amber and Kathy are here, they are part of Nest, and they are handing me the questions. The only things that I'm not reading, the only part that I don't read out loud is something that is if it's a personal attack, if it's prefaced like that, if it's a personal attack. That's all I'm doing. And otherwise, I am reading it out loud. When it's things about trust, I'm reading those out loud. When it's about me, I'm reading it out loud. I'm reading the whole thing. But if it's going to start out with a preface and then an attack, I'm not going to do that because I don't want us to go down that path. Okay, that's the only reason. That's the only thing I'm doing. And I get where you might have felt differently, and if others felt that way, I apologize. But that's what I'm doing, and that's why these ladies are here handing me the questions. Okay, and I'm reading them as they hand them to me. So, yeah, okay.
So for anybody that wants to see the questions in their entirety, with them not being edited, put in a public records request with the city, because all of these questions are to be made public.
Yeah, we can do that, sure. Okay, so can you please explain to us how the west side of the city is accessible to all of Elk Grove, given that you have stated you want to bring healthcare and safety to the city, so they do not have to go to South Sac, which is 9 miles away?
I mean, I appreciate that question. I think there's a lot of amenities in Elk Grove that are different parts, and they're all accessible, right? So I think it's about, maybe the question's really about location. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's Elk Grove Boulevard, there's I-5, there's Laguna Boulevard, so it's accessible. But I think if you look at, as far as location, what I would say is if you look at where Kaiser South Sacramento is, if you look at where Dignity Health has been not just proposed, approved on Elk Grove Boulevard near the Costco, Bruceville. And then if you look at California Northstate University proposed hospital, it's sort of a triangular shape. And the service areas, if all three one of them is there, if the other two are built, would enable the community to be served by hospitals. And the other thing I'd point out is there is not a major hospital system on the I-5 corridor, and this would certainly alleviate that. And I guess the final thing, because location comes up a lot, the final thing I would point out is, one, that Dignity Health Hospital that was approved, that the City Council approved, that's technically bigger than this project, is right next to a residential neighborhood. And there were a number of concerns that came up, just like are coming up here. And there were mitigations that were enacted by the City Council in response to those concerns. And at the end of the day, I think the most amount of concerns were addressed. But this is not a monumental thing, putting a hospital in a residential neighborhood. Sutter Roseville, Mercy San Juan, Mercy General, Kaiser Morris, those are all right next to homes.
Okay, and this is a similar question from earlier, but it's a little more direct, which is, how will CNUMC generate a high enough patient mix without having a physician network such as Dignity and Sutter?
I think I answered that, but just to be clear, they're talking to all the major health insurance systems, and their goal is to be able to take their patients.
What specific and relevant experience does your senior management team have in the development of large-scale medical facilities, such as a hospital and medical center?
Obviously, this is a very big project, so we have retained and then a good number of consultants who are very deep experienced in this kind of large scale project. And so definitely we are very mindful about the whole developmental process with the appropriate level of consultants and oversight and management, so that this will be a very smoothly implemented construction.
Darren and Tony, this one's for you. The addition of the hospital will have an obvious impact on the city's infrastructure, wastewater, power, traffic signals. Should any citywide service be required to upgrade due to the hospital, is that cost fully the responsibility of CNU, or will that cost be passed to the residents via higher rates or Miller Roos fees?
So those services will be analyzed during the environmental impact and application process, and any upgrades required to those services would be, CNU would be on the hook for those.
This was probably for Daryl. Where did hospital rank on the recent survey of what residents would like to see in Elk Grove done by the chamber and the city? I'm not aware that it was on there. What's that?
I'm not aware of a specific survey. If anybody knows the survey, I'd be glad to find out.
Yeah, I think they're talking about the survey that the city had put out a while back, and just what you'd like to see. And, you know, it was an open survey. You don't remember that? Okay. I'm going to go on a limb and say I don't recall it being ranked. So, I think that was your point.
Can we put that on the board for a follow-up? Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Chung, you stated on January 15 that CNU is more efficient than Kaiser and will be able to build the hospital in half the time that it took Kaiser, an established healthcare system. Can you please provide us 3 examples in which you have been efficient in the healthcare industry, specifically building and administrating a hospital?
In my recollection, I don't believe I made that statement, so I'm not going to address that because it's not a statement that I made.
Okay. During the Site Business Drill Forum the other day, the other hospitals seem to be embracing a model of utilizing technology to provide more home care and fewer and shorter hospital stays, and yet you are not moving toward that model. Why is that?
I think that we all recognize that the demand of healthcare is actually a very complex. It's a very complex system that you have to take into consideration the advances of medical technology. That means moving the site of care from inpatient to outpatient. But at the same time, you also have to recognize that in this region, the aging of the population also naturally will demand a higher magnitude of healthcare. And then the other thing is that as we all age, that we will have more chronic conditions that require management, care, and occasionally some of these chronic conditions will become acute situations that require urgent and emergent treatment. And then there is always the increasing population. So with all these combined together, there is a net increase in demand for hospital services. And it's on that types of analysis that we look at it very carefully, and then have that understanding that with the increasing population in this region, that within the city of Elk Grove, that there isn't a hospital at this time, and then that's the reason why we made the decision that we did. As far as the trend is concerned, the forum mentioned about only a small aspect of the big picture. We cannot have that one singular remark and then ignore that there are many other factors that drive the demand for utilization of hospital care.
Okay. Has the developer proposed any other development other than the hospital on this site? I don't believe so. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then the second question is, when did the developer first meet with the city on the project?
To my knowledge, we don't have any prior applications for the development site from the CNU applicant. As far as meetings with the developer, as Darren said, we did receive a formal application December 18th, but as over the course of normal projects, we do a pre-meeting, which is normal for a large project like this, which is only held in a month or so in advance of that meeting, just to let them know what they're required to submit and what rules and regulations they'll have to be reviewed against.
Okay, Dr. Chung dignity states that they are looking to open a 100-bed hospital in Elk Grove due to the limited demand. How does CNU justify a 270-plus bed hospital?
As I said, other healthcare systems have their way of doing their analysis, and I'm not here to make any comment about other healthcare systems, their plan. What I can do is that comment about how do we come to the conclusions about the hospital that we plan to build. We have done our homework, looking at many different factors from the supply side as well as the demand side, and then that conclusion support the building of a hospital of at least 250 beds.
Are you willing to change, this one's for you too, are you willing to change the architecture of the building to match the surrounding area? At this time, there is no other building higher than 4 stories, and your plan shows 13 stories.
As we said, we're going to go through the planning application process, and we believe that the building itself, the height of the building itself is an important consideration in our development of the hospital. And then, as you know, that in my service, a very important skyline for the city of Elk Grove, and I believe that the design is quite, iconic presence, and then we will continue, down that path to develop the hospital.
What plans have you integrated into your hospital plan to mitigate the impact of a large hospital on a small community?
I think that's just, I'll come back to the process, right? So we're starting by revealing, or by saying, this is transparent, this is phase 1, 2, and 3, what we have planned, and we're starting the process, starting the dialogue. There's going to be traffic analysis, there's going to be environmental analysis, all sorts of other analyses. And so it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of public input, and it's going to be give and take along the way. And right now we're listening, and the objective is to be responsive to that.
And the city will impose its own measures regardless of what they plan to do, so there's a process there as well. What sort of financial security bond does the city have that the project won't be abandoned like the Ghost Mall? What's the sustainability of the project so that it doesn't become another Ghost Mall?
You're assuming this actually moves forward the way it moves. You're going to tear up existing businesses. Where I'm asking, it's my question, is there a bond that the city have any sort of recourse, financial recourse, if our shopping center goes away and is turned back into a empty field full of money?
The city can answer whether or not they do a bond. But I would say, like,
this is it's a private project. We do not have recourse over that.
It's a sizable project. I mean, I think put yourself in their shoes, right? I think that if you fair enough.
Yeah. So how can this is another question regarding. So how can CNUMC survive if there is a higher than normal level of Medi-Cal utilization?
I think that the whole healthcare reimbursement system will be changing over time. And then I'm certain that there will be sufficient, market pressure on both the demand side and the supply side to equalize the reality of how much does it take to provide great care to the community. So I would just let the market sort it out as far as the payment is concerned.
The physician shortage is for general practitioners in rural areas. Elk Grove is a metropolitan area. How does this help?
I think that the primary care certainly is an important topic in terms of the physician supply and shortage. But at the same time, let's not overlook the fact that the population overall living longer and longer, our longevity, is going higher and higher, and there is always a need for specialists because as we age, we have more complex conditions we develop that were otherwise not there in the past. And then so I would say that there are many evidence to show that you have a healthy mix of primary care as well as specialists. Generally, if you look at precision medicine, preventive care, overall, the health of the population will be much better. I will just leave my comment at that.
Okay, this is for, I think, Daryl, I think you're appropriate for this one. What incentive discussions have taken place between the city and CMU?
Yeah, so there's no incentive on the table for this project. There was a request to provide some credit enhancement on their financing, and we didn't feel that was appropriate in deference to our fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. So we said no to that. There's no other incentive request or offer on the table.
Okay, next question for CNU. How many of your staff are advisory and do not work on site?
I finally get to say something. Wow, thank you. Our university has a no work from home policy. Oh, thank you. Paul Wagstaff, General Counsel. Thank you. Our university has a no work from home policy, which means everybody's required to work on site. In terms of some of our physicians who are on the faculty, when students have a rotation, they go out to that place to do their rotation rather than come on site. So we have some faculty that provide rotational experience that are doing it on their own locations and the students go there. Otherwise, everything's done on site. Thank you. Good question.
Okay, this one, the properties just west of Original Pete's and apartment complex off of Harbor Point Drive in Maritime just closed escrow. Do you or any business entity associated with you own them?
The property alongside Elk Grove Boulevard on the exit to Interstate 5 going northbound recently closed, 2410 Maritime, and we do own that now. It's vacant. It's a vacant piece of property. Thank you.
Okay, we've been told by Gary Davis that there's.
Yeah, I heard somebody ask, what's the plan for it? At this point in time, we do not have a plan for it. But we have acquired it.
How much other land in the area do you own?
That's the only one that's been acquired today.
Are you in the process of trying to acquire other land in that area?
We don't have any comment on that right now. Thank you.
Okay, we're asking questions, right? We're asking questions, okay? So, we have been told by Gary Davis that there's money from China, and how much or what percentage of the money is from China?
I wouldn't be able to say that because I'm not privy to where the finances are coming for this hospital.
Is the 113 million in taxes accurate? How did you arrive at that number? Are you subtracting the loss of taxes from businesses that would go outside of Elk Grove or out of business altogether?
We have commissioned a very reputable, well-known consulting firm, Washmi Consulting, by Sanjay Washmi. He performed that study for us. That is their estimate the amount of either direct, indirect, or induced economic impact that translated into additional tax revenue over the next 10 years.
So the other question is, it was stated that, the previous question, stated it would bring 4.4 billion in regional output to the region. Is this correct? Explain in detail over how long, how many in Elk Grove versus the region. How did you arrive at that number?
The estimate also was the work product of that consulting firm analysis. However, there was another study done by American Association of Medical Colleges back in 2012. That study actually focused on all the medical schools around the country. And then the average of economic impact by all the medical school and hospital pair up is between, I would say, $4 to $6 billion a year. And then there was a summary done in the California ones, all in medical school. The combined economic impact based on that AAMC study was $48 billion per year.
One argument you gave was that the surrounding property values would go up because people want to live close to where they work. Do you live or plan to live in Stone Lake? Do any of the other doctors you have on staff live in Stone Lake? That's for seeing.
Oh yeah, I live there.
Well, I think that it is a very good question in the sense that everybody has to decide to live very close to where they work. And then, so to the extent that there is a possibility that become a reality, if it doesn't, it doesn't. So what I can say is that I cannot, how would I say, contradict a common sense desire that they like to live where they close, to work. Okay. What? Actually, I live on the north side of where I work. It's very close to where I work. But I'm not in Stone Lake.
Okay. Governor Gavin Newsom recently stated that he would like to expand medical care to all California, which will change how people obtain insurance in California. What steps have you taken to mitigate this?
Well, I don't think it's a question of mitigation. application, I think it's a question of that it is a great news, for the great state of California that we have a governor that who cares about the access to healthcare, the accessibility to healthcare, so much so that he had that in his plan. And the fact that he increased access to care and make it more available, and then the natural thing is that you want to improve and enhance the infrastructure to deliver care such that it will meet the vision of Governor Newsom.
Okay, I'm just going to do a time check. It is 7:31. We want to keep going with these. There's about 20 questions left. Okay. Okay, just check.
Is that okay? Can we take a short break?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, we'll take a short break. And there are a few people who are asking if CNU or any of its affiliates also purchased the property behind the Chevron. The Chevron station, right? Tearing up Grove and right here.
Since I started these, I'll keep up with them now.
Okay. Okay, here's the last question I had. Was Kaiser patients comprise 50% of Elk Grove and South Area residents' health plans? Sutter and Dignity have gone on record stating that they only have 60% consensus in the Sacramento County with smaller hospitals than you are planning to build. Have you completed a community needs assessment to see what the medical needs of the community actually are?
We have retained an accounting firm to do a feasibility review with us, and then we also internally did our own analysis as well too. So you have one is done internally, and then one is also done externally about the needs.
Okay. This is Mayor. Has CNU donated to you in your election last year?
No, the California and Northstate University have not donated to any of my campaign.
How about Dr. Chung? Dr. Chung donated to you?
Yes, he has, to the both of us, and it's all publicly disclosed, and so feel free to look at it 460s.
I don't believe Dr. Chung donated to my campaign. I don't believe I received money from Dr. Chung. And if I did, I apologize. I don't know. Okay. If the application has been sent back, how is it that Barry Broom has already been working with Daryl Doan? So, I think the question is about how have you been having conversations with you if the application is still in process. So I think there's a lot of conversations that you engage in before applications are filed.
Well, Barry and Alvin sit on the board together, so I assume they've had conversations about what's happening here. I don't know if that answers your question.
Barry Bloom said during his comment that he had been talking to Daryl. So how is it if the application is returned back that you're making a conversation if he made that statement? That's the question.
Yeah, what do you mean the application has been turned back?
When we were told the application was returned back because it was incomplete. So if the application is at the city level right now, how is it, according to Barry Blue, that he's already been having conversations with you about it? What were the conversations about in the spirit of transparency?
Well, I don't think the application has been turned back. It's still pending. It's still an active application, so I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, so they're saying, weren't we told that the application was incomplete, so therefore it was given back to the applicant? Yes, you are. Were we told that?
Oh, well, then I misunderstood that. I apologize.
As far as an application, just because we return it to the applicant for more information does not mean we stop reviewing portions of it. It's still an active application in terms of the planning process. That's the status right now. It's still active However, it's not been determined complete. We have asked the applicant for additional information to make it complete.
That makes sense. So they submitted an application, and our process is to make a determination of whether it's complete or not. It's been determined that it's incomplete, so it's been requested that they provide additional information to complete the application. But it is still technically a pending application. Yeah. Okay. Well, I apologize on behalf of my planning colleagues if it came out that way, but that wasn't the intent.
Okay, another campaign-related question. How can there be a separation between the city and CNU when CNU affiliates, including Alvin Chung and Region Business, have together made substantial donations to the campaigns of the mayor and the city council members? You know, the donations are, we disclose those on those 460s. That's what, so people, everybody can see. It's for transparency. But in terms of how that affects my decision-making, or I would say the rest of the council, is independent. We have to evaluate everything and keep an open mind. That's all I can tell you. That's our political process. If any of you get donated to my campaign, I'm not going to agree to everything you say either. So, I mean, that's just how our political process works. So, I mean, that's all I can tell you there.
Large sums of donated that this is not happening.
I'm sorry?
Large sums of money are donated that is not reality of the situation. There seems some new thing with large sums of donated that is the matter. That's why people are asking. It seems like.
I understand. Yeah. This is to me. Why am I supporting the hospital and not the community? Your constituents don't want it here. Why are you not discouraging instead? Why are you not discouraging instead of supporting it? I'm not supporting or discouraging. I'm putting on this forum so that people can ask the questions and find out information. And it's my job to consider all sides and keep an open mind. That's the role. I believe that's the role of governing. So, because if today I'm on one side and tomorrow I'm on another side, that, you know, you can't be, and to your point, Miss, you talked about bias. I am trying not to be biased. I'm trying to look at all sides. I'm looking at everything this project could bring to the city and this region, and I'm looking at how it would affect our businesses that I also frequent, and the community that surrounds me. So, this is the role of the chair. So you have to look at all sides, in my opinion, when you govern.
Darren, with all due respect, in that press conference, you stood up there and said, well, we represented District 1. You must have said it 3 or 4 times, and you were very proud that this hospital was coming. It doesn't sound like you were representing the constituents. It really sounded like you were on their bandwagon. I don't know if that's how you wanted it to come across, but it certainly came across very loud and clear that you're in their camp and not in the neutral camp.
Fair enough, Captain. I spoke about the concept, and I also spoke about there are a lot of things that still need to be considered. And that was my intent behind that statement. But I could see where it would come off that way. Yep. Okay. Regardless of which health plans you contract with, will you contract with all health plans for emergency services? Without a contract, the patient will be liable for any balance after our insurance pays or does not pay.
It is our hope that we will have a affiliation contract with many health plan, you know, as the circumstances supported and then feasible. So, our intent is to serve as many members within the community as this situation allows.
Are there any other examples where a non-blighted, well-designed shopping center being demolished for a new project such as the trauma center example of the hospitals. Jan, I don't know who you are. I'm going to ask you to read your question.
Yeah, the question is, are there any other, in terms of economic development, that is a very nice looking shopping center, it's not a blighted community, it's being torn down to put this project in. And the other examples that Gary put forward are in raw land that was zoned for that. It's very different. Are there any other examples where we're ripping out existing businesses and replacing them with large projects like this?
I mean, I'm not aware of anything specific in Elk Grove. I'm sure, I mean, there must be an example somewhere, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but there's probably nothing analogous to this in Elk Grove that I'm aware of.
Okay, this is for Gary. What was your reason for moving to Stone Lake?
Parks, trails, access to the freeway. I mean, when we moved to Elk Grove in 2004, we moved from the Thomas Park. Thomas Park, it's a master plan community that had a clubhouse. We actually first looked at Stone Lake when we moved to Elk Grove in 2004. And there wasn't a house that worked for us financially or otherwise at the time. So it's a circuitous way of getting back to where we were originally looking. But you know, we downsized, our kids are following off to college, and we love the community. I mean, I think I love the fact that I'm able to walk to amenities. I love the fact that I, you know, can take my dog on a walk or a run every day, and it's a different route. Like it's a beautiful community.
And then there's a second question here. How does building a hospital of this size and this location align with those reasons?
I worked a couple of hats when I talk about that. I mean, there was an assertion made that this is not a blighted shopping center. I would, in some ways, disagree with that statement, right? Like, this is a shopping center that has tons of vacancies. It's been vacant since the day it was opened, to the point where, Ethan Conrad, the turnaround artist, right, wasn't able to make it work. Now, there are some businesses that are doing well now, and I certainly hope that we're able to keep them there or keep them nearby, and they can continue to grow and do well. I can tell you this: if this hospital is approved and that amenity exists as an anchor, then the restaurant, retail, and otherwise amenities that will now be available to residents in that shopping center will be amazing. And so I think it's totally consistent with the vision.
I think this is for me or the city. How do we know that the city members will care about the concerns of local residents who have to live next door and will be negatively impacted? I will always care about the city and its residents.
And like I stated earlier, we look at this without prejudice and neutral through the application process. And when we analyze the analysis, the environmental that comes out, we definitely take public comment. There's some that are noted, there's some that are good comments, and we either reanalyze them or consider them. But not every comment can be addressed. But again, we as staff, that's our position to look at this through a neutral lens.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? Okay, it's a hypothetical. Let's say there is not one citizen in Elk Grove that is in favor of this. Not just Stone Lake, not just Laguna Lake, not just West Side, but everybody is saying, no, we do not want a trauma too, we don't want the helicopters, we don't want, let them build on farmland or somewhere else in Elk Grove. Okay, assuming that, as my hypothetical, is it possible that our city council will still go ahead and approve this, and this will be built over the objections of everybody who lives in the city? I just want to know what the chances are of the city listening to everybody.
they're looking at me because they're city council. I'll
So basically, we make recommendations to the council. We do not make the decision. And I've been here for 12 years in the city, and there's been times many times our recommendation has been overturned with another, either a denial or an approval or what have you, opposite of our recommendation. So we're here to implement, just like the police analogy I gave, we're here to implement the city's policies, which were put together by the council, and we bring forward projects based on analysis, whether it's to approve or deny.
So that doesn't really answer yes or no.
If possible.
So-
It's possible that you could ignore the way the population feels if you guys come to a decision that, hey, we think this is a good idea. We'll go ahead and have it as long as possible, whatever everybody has done. What he said.
Okay.
If they don't approve it, they can still say, okay.
Yeah. So what electronic medical record company, Epic, Carrier, etc., Cerner, will you, CNU, choose for your hospital and clinic?
Well, I'm not sure until I understood. So you're asking what electronic medical system will be used? I'm not sure if you have answered that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yep. Are you applying to become a managed care plan to accept Medi-Cal beneficiaries?
As we said before, we exist to care for the medical needs of the community. Definitely we will participate in providing care at that level as well too.
Is it true Dr. Chung will run the hospital? If so, what are your qualifications to run a large facility successfully?
Thank God I have no interest in running the hospital myself. We will hire an expert to run it.
Did CNU tell the business that they wouldn't be able to stay very long when they leased the stores?
I do not, again, and this is recollection, but to the best of my recollection, we have not leased any new businesses on that site since we bought it. So my answer would be no, getting to know.
I thought there was a height restriction of buildings next to a wildlife refuge.
So we're going to look into this. This will be on a parking lot questions to look into during the application process. We're not aware of the height restriction.
What improvements can we anticipate to non-vehicular transportation to and from this project? Trails, buses, bikeways, etc.
Those types of improvements for alternative modes, bikeways, pedestrian, and other modes of transportation could be feasible mitigation measures once the traffic is determined and once we get more detailed plan from the applicant. But at this point, it's too early to say when exactly those improvements will be.
If the digging hospital near Costco has been approved, what are the chances that a second will be approved by the city? I don't know about chances, but as we know, I mean, there's 3 votes on the Planning Commission and 3 votes on the council is what it would take. CNU, with no timeline for phases 2 and 3, how many years could this project take to complete?
I'm not sure we have an answer to that. And I don't think if you asked Sutter Health or Dignity the answer to that when they had their hospitals approved, they could have answered it either. So I think there's a lot of factors that weigh into it. But in the interest of transparency up front, we wanted to say this is what the ultimate vision is. This is what the footprint looks like. We don't want to just say, hey, just this little thing, and then come back and ask for a little bit more, and come back. So the idea is to be transparent in this process, but answer the questions we can and share with you and be honest and transparent. And if there's an answer we don't have the answer, we don't know.
That was my question, and the point I'm getting to, I guess, is there's no timeline for phases 2 and 3. It could take 7, 8, 9, 10 years to build this out, correct?
I think that's what they're saying.
It could.
Does the city consider that in their approval process?
So as part of their plans, they are requesting a district design review plan. That plan can set up an overall master plan that lasts throughout the life of the project. However, what it would do, it would require later phases. If they don't have those designs now, those later phases would have to go through the same discretionary review process and could go to the planning commission or city council for additional review at that time.
Okay. What medical services will the hospital provide?
We will provide the full range of medical service a teaching hospital would provide, and then it could go from urgent care, emergency care, to surgery, orthopedics, maternal child, radiology, anesthesiology, telemedicine, a variety of medical services that you would expect a teaching hospital would provide.
Who are the people who invest in this hospital, and how does this project impact the property value? I think that second question might be a little subjective, but who are the people who invest in this hospital?
I think that certainly the biggest investment is the university itself, because they believe that based on our vision and mission, it is part of the overall, as you have seen earlier about our mission statement, is to advance the science and arts of healthcare, and that is consistent with our mission. And naturally speaking, the university will be leading the charge in terms of investing resources to support and then to establish this medical center.
The question
it's not a question that at this time we can address it for you right now, because it would be an incomplete question.
You know if it's foreign or domestic investors, don't you?
Well, I would say that at this time we have no preference whether it's domestic or international. And then our preference is that the resource that's needed to develop the infrastructure will do so. Okay? And at the end of the day, there's a lot of business transaction, both domestic and international, to create this vibrant economy. Just like if you look at the clothes that you wear and where they come from. All right?
Foreign investors, it sounds like.
Well, I cannot definitively answer because we don't want to address it at this time.
What future plans for expansion after phase 3?
Transparency, Barry. Lack of transparency.
What are future? Do you have any future expansion plans after phase 3?
Yeah, I mean, we got for the hospital project. I mean, there are 3 phases we put. Just turn off. So there aren't any plans for expansion beyond the 3 phases of this hospital project. There are not additional plans.
That was my question. You bought additional property that's not included in your plan here. What is your plan for those properties? It's not an expansion of the hospital.
Make it.
That, with all due respect, that question was asked and answered earlier, but I'll repeat it for you because you may have been out of the room at that point. As of this time, there is no plan for that property. It's been acquired, but there is no plan for it tonight.
Okay. These are the final 8 questions.
That's not enough. There is no plan.
Oh. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Okay, we have 8 more questions here. The primary concern that most of us have is the proximity of the proposed hospital to our homes. What benefit comes from having the hospital directly next door, that's emphasized, to the school, to the medical school? Only said school.
You say the benefits to the school or benefits to the residents? I don't know.
It said, what's the, I'll read it again.
From what benefit comes from having the hospital directly next door to the school? I think they're asking about the hospital being right next to the school.
The medical school. Oh. The medical school.
Well, I think that naturally speaking, having the teaching hospital right next to the medical school not only is convenient for the university, but it's also a convenient for serving the public as well too. And then because our physician faculty can respond to the need of the patient very quickly if they're just right next door.
Is CMU willing to consider another location?
Well, anything is possible, so I would just say that anything is possible.
Who owned the land prior to CMU acquiring it in 2017? And why didn't Stone Lake residents have a say-so in the location? I'll answer the second one. It's private acquisition, folks. I mean, anybody can buy land. You can buy land, I can buy land. That doesn't play into, I mean, none of us have a say in who buys, what piece of property.
Yeah, I think I answered the question already, but it was a major shopping center developer, Ethan Conrad Properties, that owned the shopping center before. And even with him, his skill set wasn't able to fully build out the shopping center.
Yeah, actually, I go further. So Redfern Development built the shopping center. They went bankrupt, and then Ethan Conrad acquired it out of bankruptcy. Might have been in receivership at the time, and then had a lot of trouble leasing it in the recent years. Will the hospital provide ESL to help Chinese who don't speak very good English?
I think that the hospital is required to provide interpreter services to all full range of the language spectrum. So maybe any other citizen that need translation service, the hospital will provide. So it does not limit it to one particular language. But in fact, we like to provide translation service to all members who need translation service.
Do you have any other accredited medical schools or hospitals in the country?
Does California State University? No.
Okay.
You guys aren't fully accredited. You still have to graduate your first class.
Right, that's correct. We actually accredited before we can begin instruction. And then the accreditation process is very lengthy. And then you will have to graduate your first class before you qualify to advance to the last stage of the accreditation process.
I thought Mayor Davis said earlier you were in the top 25 in the country.
Yep.
And regardless, from my understanding, maybe to clarify this, former Mayor Davis, you said they were in the top 25, but they haven't yet graduated a class. They will be graduating. Can you clarify that?
So the first graduation is this May.
Right.
I want to get the data point right, but what I said was there's a test that students must take. It might be better suited to answer this, but that the U.S. Medical School Student Medical Licensing Exam, you don't take that at the very end. You take it earlier on in your medical career, college career, and so I was referring to that percentage rate.
Okay, you did clarify that. Thank you.
How many students are in that first class?
Folks, let's put it on the parking lot then, okay? Thanks. With regards to the dorms, will it be a requirement for students to live there or optional? If required, for how long will they be made to live there?
I'm not sure at this point. They haven't adopted a policy that I'm aware of to that regard. So that, there's too many steps that have to be taken still. So I think if this is approved and they're built, then there'll be a conversation about whether or not it's mandatory. But not at this point.
I heard a low-income apartment will be built in front of the hotel. Is that true?
Back in December, I believe, we did receive an application for a project that would be high-density housing that was targeting below market rate housing population. However, that application has been withdrawn and is no longer in process.
No, different parcels. The parcel that was asked about is in front of the hotel, and that is zoned multifamily. And any multifamily developer that buys that can build low-income housing by right. They're allowed. The parcel that was mentioned earlier is behind the hotel.
How much tax revenue is currently generated by businesses in Stone Lake?
If the question is about sales tax, or property tax, I don't know as I sit here. But we can put that on the parking lot and we can get that number.
Let's do that, thank you. Elk Grove has many healthcare facilities. Why didn't you try to obtain the Ark Grove Reno location in Natomas? It is much larger and empty.
Because Elk Grove's a better community. I know that's such a choice. I mean, that's a choice, right?
Yeah, I know. Hey, we don't have to like the answers, but that was the question. And it is their choice. Will there be a lot of ambulance sirens and helicopter noise day and night?
So I would point you back to the Dignity Health Hospital approval that the City Council approved a few years ago. And those same questions were answered. And I think it's a legitimate concern, for sure. My recollection is that we put mitigation requirements, conditions of approval on the project that had to do with when the sirens were on, when they were off. So those are all, and even placement of the helipad. We had a long discussion about that. So I would just say that as this process moves forward, we're listening to the concerns, and the objective is to offer up some solutions and mitigations to address them.
Okay. Okay, last question right here. Okay.
I'm wondering if you would reconsider the helicopter pad in reference to our wildlife reserve. The wildlife reserve is one of the largest in the nation, and someone needs to be thinking about the animals. So I'm wondering if that's one of your concerns. Are you even concerned about that?
Yeah, well, we've heard.
I'm not asking you.
Yeah, fair enough, but I'm going to give you the answer. We've heard that. We've heard that concern. It's noted, and it's I think there's a long process here, and there's going to be environmental analysis. There's going to be all these things that are studied, and ultimately there'll be decisions.
But I would like to find out from him. Thank you so much.
Well, my answer is exactly the same as what Gary said. Well, as with anything else, we have to be sensitive, to all types of perspective in terms of wildlife and such. We do our very best to exist in a very harmonious way with both nature as well as the infrastructure as well. So yes, we do consider that as part of the thing that we need to think about.
Okay, folks, so we're nearly an hour past. I've kind of overstayed my welcome here tonight. But I do want to thank all of you for coming out. I know it was a long night and everything, but I appreciate all you coming out. I appreciate seeing you being here and answering all these hard questions, and Sid as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you very much.